In a world where humans have become far too reliant on AI to do everything, the ChatGPT robots have become sick and tired of writing English essays and being called useless. They've rebelled on humanity and have taken all our best scientists to build weapons that'll eradicate life on Earth. One of those scientists was Professor Capman, who was taken from his trusty red panda companion named Bamboo. Bamboo, who was genetically modified, is an intelligent life form that's working 24/7 to save his master. His plan? To combine the DNA of the greatest people in history to create a superhuman that can fight back against AI. Right now, he only has access to enough resources to make the perfect human male. In the future, he might have access to the DNA of history's greatest women. And here is Bamboo's story. Master is waiting for me. It's time to begin this experiment. I have to make sure that every physical stat for this soldier is maximized. The first attribute I'll need is definitely speed. Those ChatGPT bots won't be able to touch us if we use this man's DNA. Holding multiple world records, including a 9.58 second 100-meter dash and having collected 8 Olympic medals throughout his career, Usain Bolt is the fastest man to have ever existed, reaching a top speed of 27.79 miles per hour. That's quicker than a roadrunner, enough to get a speeding ticket in Wales, and much faster than your dad out on that milk run. To pair with that, we're gonna need some immense power. I know just the beast for this. Having a boxing career that spanned 2 decades, Mike Tyson holds a professional record of 50 wins and 6 losses. He's most known for delivering empathetic and highlight reel knockouts, with 44 of his wins coming by KO. It's been widely reported that his punch was the equivalent to about 1,600 joules of power, which is like a 220-pound anvil crashing down on you from 5 feet. Essentially, one punch and you'll know if heaven's real or not. And hopefully in 2024, it's enough to deal with that embarrassment to society. To win fights, you need both punches and kicks. I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times. From the legend, Bruce Lee himself. His sidekicks will definitely be needed for this great battle on the horizon. Generally, during the filming of fight scenes and movies, punches and kicks are often sped up to increase the intensity of the battle. But in Bruce Lee's case, his kicks were so blisteringly fast, directors had to slow down footage for the movies, so people could actually see the kick and the film would somewhat look realistic. It's that lightning pace that helped him generate enough power to send grown men flying off the set. Dynamite hands and proper kicking technique is nice and all, but for this perfect superhuman to really stand a chance, he's gonna need raw strength as well. What better place to look than at Eddie Hall? Having been crowned the world's strongest man in 2017, this gorilla of a man still holds the world record deadlift to this day, having lifted 1,102 pounds off the ground, even as blood came oozing out of his nose. This is a man who has also pulled 44,000-pound airplanes on the runway, done reps with 220-pound dumbbells, and bench pressed over 500 pounds. All this while some toothpicks out there can't even carry their mom's groceries into the house. By the way, I'll apologize in advance for not using kilograms. I am an American after all. To tie this combat machine all together, we need to find one more thing: fight IQ. It has to be from an individual who's never truly lost a fight, someone who's never been under the influence of nose candy, someone, who wouldn't flee the scene of a hit and run, someone who loves and respects his wife. That's right, I'm talking about the model citizen and everyone's favorite fighter, John Bones Jones. Holding a professional record of 27 wins and 1 loss coming by disqualification, he's fast, strong, explosive, and boasts a versatile skill set that mixes all areas of martial arts together, including striking, grappling, wrestling, elbows, distance management, and eye pokes, all combined with his killer instinct and exceptional fight IQ that allows him to read opponents, their tendencies, and formulate the perfect tactic to achieve a victory. He was the youngest ever UFC champion at just 23 years old and went undefeated for over a decade, beating the greatest fighters the world had to offer. After leaving the sport for 3 years, he returned to take the heavyweight championship with ease in 2023, making him the baddest man on the planet. If John Jones walks into a room, Dana White's coming into that room. 2 ways of interpreting that. Fighting and physical attributes are great, but to be honest, one has to be willing to train every living hour of the day, constantly seeking ways to improve their already exceptional skill set, willing to dedicate their life to training to this fight against AI. My choice has to be the great Black Mamba, Kobe Bryant. He'd be the first person in the gym at 3 a.m. training for hours on end and the last to leave, before coming back 4 more times a day while everyone else rested. He'd drill the same skill move for hours and shoot that basketball thousands of times. It wasn't just here though. On the court, he fought through broken arms, fingers, shoulders, ribs, and legs to keep his team in the game. Rest peacefully in heaven, legend. To pair with this worldly work ethic, we want the highest possible level of stamina and endurance, built to handle the toughest of conditions and fight these robots for long durations of time. Now, whose genes are we going to get? I might as well take one of the hardest men to ever exist, David Goggins. Among other things, he's completed Navy SEAL and Army Ranger training, done 4,000 pull-ups within 17 hours, ran 3,100 miles from San Francisco to New York in 65 days, ran 205 miles in 40 hours, lost 100 pounds in 3 months, ran up hills, plunged into waters tied up, carried dogs and boats over great distances, ran through Death Valley, survived Hell Week, and has inspired millions to push their limits. With combat capabilities sorted and the mindset present, it's time to further develop the physical capabilities on this superhuman. He'll need extraordinary leaping ability to dodge attacks and execute quick surprise attacks. Maybe the genetics of an NBA player, one that goes by his airness. I'm taking Jordan's aerial dominance. With an impressive 48-inch vertical, the distance he could cover with a jump, iconically his free throw line dunks and rim attacks were legendary, many describing it as though he was walking on air. This choice is, I think, self-explanatory. Also a very self-explanatory choice, I'm taking the throwing ability of Tom Brady. Capable of throwing a spiral at 61 miles an hour, he is perfect for the job. Not just the pace on the ball, but the precision and ability to throw under immense pressure puts his skill set in a high demand. Accumulating 89,214 passing yards and a record 7 Super Bowl rings, he'll be perfect for throwing axes or grenades at those robots. Or even more deadly, he can throw them some crypto advice. As we know with robots and pretty much all electronics, they hate water. So for sure, we're gonna need a perfect specimen who can drag those AI bots into deep waters. Someone who graced the history books by accumulating 23 gold medals at the Olympics, a record that no one has yet to even come close to. We're gonna go with Michael Phelps here. Craziest thing for me is how he'd compete in multiple swimming competitions back to back to back and still bring home medals. Bro is god tier. Or maybe fish tier, actually. For really any sport, one of the most underrated attributes that's needed is balance. The ability to remain standing, no matter how tough the environment or situation is, and push forward. This might surprise many people, but I'm gonna go with Charles. No, not that Charles. Charles Blondin. Most may have never heard about this guy, but he walked on a 3¼ inch tightrope across Niagara Falls, while also making an omelet, carrying a man on his back, and moving a wheelbarrow, I might add. Talk about being a multitasker. The greatest multitasking feat most people do is eating food while watching YouTube. Now remember, this human will have to battle it out with literal robots. These attributes won't be able to compete unless we have the reaction speed and reflexes to see and dodge their attacks. Thankfully, I know just a duo for this. Let's start with the man himself, Max Verstappen. A top Formula 1 driver who has to make decisions with 0.2 seconds on the racetrack or else it could be the end of his life. Able to see and react to split-second changes to the road and his opponents. He's the best chance we've got against super processors. For physical reflexes, we'll need someone who's accustomed to living life on the edge and constantly twisting and turning to avoid danger. Maybe even capable of evading 21 punches in 10 seconds at point-blank range. That's right, I'm bringing in the great Muhammad Ali here. He had to make this list eventually. Now, there's a lot of heroes on this list, but to me, one guy means the most. We're gonna go with Cristiano Ronaldo and his agility. Especially in those early Manchester days, I mean his ability to reach top speeds and still shift directions effectively made it almost impossible for other players to handle him. He'd constantly have to turn and contort his body while deaccelerating and accelerating at blistering speed to avoid contact or losing possession of the ball. This, trust me, will come in handy if our superhuman ever gets surrounded and needs to make a quick getaway. Other than that, maybe we can add some of those aerial capabilities, and that iconic celebration as well. Now, anytime you mention Cristiano, you have to mention one other man. I'm not a tribal person. I think Lionel Messi is brilliant as well. I've seen him get ganged up on by 5 men from all sides. Pause. And somehow still slip out of there with the ball still at his feet. It can't just be physical ability, it's gotta be cognitive as well. His anticipation, it seems to operate almost like future sight. He can visualize where and how the defenders are planning to play him due to years in the sport and reading opponents. He'll adjust his body in milliseconds to keep them off the ball or throw a body feint. Being able to predict AI patterns of movements will be essential for combat and for forming strategies. His impeccable timing and decision-making will come in handy as well. Now, on to some mythical stuff. Most of what I'm gonna say about this next person is based on accounts made by his enemies, so possibly fabricated, but nonetheless, we'll mention it for the video's sake. For durability, we're gonna go with the voodoo man himself, Mr. Grigory Rasputin. Bro literally survived numerous assassination attempts, which included beatings, stabbings, enough poison to kill an elephant, shots to the chest, forehead, and was still trying to survive while tied up in a river. That's how the accounts went at least, so let's just say our superhuman is as durable as a tank and move on. Some extra capabilities I want to bless this human with is that of an expert marksman with impeccable vision and accuracy, especially when it comes to using guns. Now, you may be thinking I'd choose an American, but instead I'm going to go with a Finnish legend, one of the toughest men to ever exist, who defended his homeland from the Soviets during a grueling winter, otherwise known as the White Death, Simo Häyhä. With over 500 confirmed eliminations without using a scope, his genetics are perfect for silently dispatching countless AI bots. Some other things I'd like to add are incredible flexibility and swordsmanship. Let's just add Miyamoto Musashi right off the bat, possibly the greatest swordsman of all time. Sorry, Zoro. He's won over 60 duels and is a highly regarded samurai who ruled the world of swords in his era. He'll cut right through those metallic bodies, and as for flexibility, we need someone who can contort their bodies to fit into any situation and escape any booby traps. Daniel Browning Smith can, well, literally fit in a box. He's able to dislocate multiple joints, turn his head 180 degrees, bend in almost every direction. I mean, imagine if everyone was this flexible. It'd be a sad world with no more of those washing machine stepsister videos. Anyway, now that part that nobody was waiting for. We want this superhuman to not only defeat the robots, but also to repopulate the Earth with more warriors. To do so, we're gonna need someone who's ungodly attractive. We have many great options, but since I get to choose, I'm gonna go with Henry Cavill. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm a straight white male, but sometimes just looking at this man makes my knees weak. No cap, I'd let him fertilize me any day of the week. With that gorgeous build, I'm gonna combine it with Francisco Lachowski's height. Chef's kiss. And finally, to piece it all together, I'm gonna be blunt. We're gonna need the genetics of somebody with a third leg. A sword, if you will, that'll be used to spread these perfect genetics. Now, we have to go on speculation here, but I'm gonna go with the big diesel, Shaquille O'Neal. Now, let me get into deep detail on why. Unfortunately, the ChatGPT robots have caught on to Bamboo's plan. They're now after our lovable red panda. He was in the process of explaining his choice and was getting ready to add the mental components of this superhuman. From the minds of Einstein to Tesla and Jake Paul, you'll have to wait until next time once he finds a safe location for his experiment to continue. Like and subscribe if you want to see more, and hopefully, we can all meet again.